Welcome to Krav Life. I'm Paul Simos, and today on Train to Fight, we have Mr. Laurent Mougeot. Today, we're going to be discussing his training history with the IKMF and his views on how to properly train in Krav Maga and how Krav Maga can be used as an aid in therapy. It's going to be really interesting, so hang out for this one. It's going to be a good one. Also, be sure to become a member of the Krav Life community and get access to this interview, as well as all of our past ones, plus awesome Krav Maga related material. Best of all, it's entirely free. Just go to mykrav.com and click the community link to join. So, without further delay, here's Mr. Laurent Mougeot. All right, so welcome to Krav Life, Mr. Laurent. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. So, can you tell our listeners where are you calling in from? Like, where are you situated?
Well, I'm myself. I'm in my house right now in Gatineau, but I'm right across the river from the nation capital in Ottawa, and my school is in Ottawa as well.
Yeah, for those people that don't know, Ottawa is the capital of Canada. So, how did you get started in the Krav Maga industry? Like, how long have you been doing this sort of thing?
My first contact with Krav Maga was when I was 18 years old in 1989, and I'm 50 now, so that's a long time ago. Basically, I grew up in France. I moved when I was 20. That's when I moved to Canada, and I was born in Lyon. My family moved to a little town called Saint-Étienne when I was 8. And Saint-Étienne is not one of the nice typical places that you will think France to be. It's a rough place. There's lots of gang activity, and there's a lot of insecurity. People are getting victims of assault all the time, and even going through school for me was like a big challenge. There was a lot of racketeering going on, and bullying in my days wasn't. I'm not saying that bullying is not serious today. It's always a serious issue, but I was bullied for many years, and it wasn't just like name calling. It was knife to the throat and stabbing and a lot of really bad things. So when I was about 13, I like a lot of people in my situation, I was tired of getting beat up all the time. So I joined a karate school. And I spent most of my teens, practicing karate avidly. And it didn't give me much of an edge in the streets. I was until I came to Canada. So until the age of 20, I was in many street fights, and it was very frustrating to see that in spite of all the qualities and the good things that traditional martial arts can bring you, in terms of violence in the street, it was very limited. And one of my karate instructors, his name is Jean-Marie Arez. One day I came to the dojo, and again I was bruised up, and I just got assaulted by 3 guys the night before, and I actually held my own, and I managed to get them to run away. But he told me, listen, if that's what you really want to do, to actually learn to fight in the street, I got something else for you. And Jean-Marie had just returned from Israel, where he participated in one of the first Krav Maga instructor course offered by it was with Eyal Yaninov and IMI, but it was even before the International Krav Maga Federation. I think it was the IKMF back then. And then Jean-Marie joined the Fédération Européenne de Krav Maga, the European Krav Maga Federation, with Richard Douyeb. So that's where I started to train. And for me, it was a huge revelation. It was like, okay, I love karate, but this is what I really need. And so I trained in Krav Maga for a little while, and then when I moved to Canada, definitely I realized there was nothing. There was no Krav Maga. People didn't even know what it was, what it meant. I'm talking about the early 1990s, so it was still a little bit of a rare thing, like people didn't really know what it was, and. Like I went back to traditional martial arts. I had a black belt in Shotokan Karate. I completed another black belt in Chitokan Karate. I did competition fighting. I did some Taekwondo. I lived on a Mohawk Reserve for a year, and I joined their Taekwondo team. So that helped a lot with kicking. And then in Montreal, at some point, I joined Kyokushin Karate, which was a lot more realistic. I enjoyed that. The fighting part was full contact, was very hard. And then in 2003, I decided to basically go solo, and I started to teach self-defense in Ottawa with the Krav Maga that I knew mixed with the other things I learned in martial arts. And in 2005, Philippe Cadouche, who was part of the the International Krav Maga Federation back then, came to Canada to do a seminar. And I saw that on the internet, and I contacted him right away. And I said, listen, I have at least a dozen students who will be interested. So why don't you come to Ottawa? Because originally they were only going to go to Montreal and Toronto. So we decided to stop in Ottawa, and we had this big seminar, and it was fantastic. I mean, the brand of Krav Maga that Philippe Cadouche was teaching was extremely brutal, but that's exactly what we were looking for. And that was in 2005. A few months later, Thierry Simkoskas, who was one of the expert level instructors with Philippe Cadouche, moved to Montreal, and I started to train with me, and my students started to train with him very intensely. We did all his seminars. We invited him all the time to come train. I will go to Montreal to train with him. And the next year, I joined the civilian instructor course, the first one that was ever done by the IKMF in Canada. So I went to Vancouver, and between Vancouver and Montreal, I completed the 3 parts and become a Krav Maga certified instructor. And my school, which was a bit of an informal self-defense school that I was running for a couple of years, officially opened as Krav Maga Ottawa in 2007. So it's going to be 15 years next year that we're running our school.
Oh, nice. So you had your school prior to starting Krav Maga?
Yeah.
Or prior to becoming an instructor?
I had my school before, prior to becoming an officially certified instructor. Yes, but of course, when I became an instructor, it changed everything, the way I taught and everything else. So.
All right. And so since then, like, what are some of the other certifications in Krav Maga that you've gone or gotten, or that people that you've trained with? What are some of the highlights?
Okay, so after I became an instructor, I made a point to continue training at high level with the highest people in IKMF. I went through all the levels. So in IKMF, we have the practitioner levels, which I skipped over because they're for all of the students level. And so I did the instructor course. I certified as a G1 graduate instructor. And then for the next few years, I went through all of the G levels. In 2012, so almost 10 years ago, I went to Israel for the first time to participate in an expert crash camp. Because with IKMF, you can test in your own country for every P and G levels, but when you get to the expert levels, you have to go to Israel. There is no way around it. You have to train for a week with all of the people from around the world, and the last day you have to do the tests, which are absolutely brutal. So I went 3 times since then. I'm an expert level 3 right now, and I got expert level 3 in 2018. In the same time, I did a certification to teach kids because it's a separate course, and to teach women as well. It's also a different approach. When I did the law enforcement course, which in my view was the most fascinating course, it was 2 weeks. including 5 days of shooting, tactical shooting, and so on, which was very interesting because in Canada we don't have the same exposure to the firearms as in the United States, for example. So I did this training in Texas, where basically they put a gun in my hand as soon as I got
Yeah.
there, and we had the gun with us for the 2 weeks. I was very nervous because I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm supposed to have a gun on me all the time, but that's the way it was. We were on a compound that was used for the law enforcement, including the FBI for training. And then I did also in the last since 2015, the past 5-6 years, I did the VIP protection courses,
Mhm.
because the way the curriculum is structured with IKMF, up to expert level 2, it's the civilian. Everything is civilian.
Yeah.
Civilian curriculum. Then to be an expert level 3 like myself, the curriculum is all about third-party protection, how to apply to bodyguard profession and protect others. And then expert level 4 is law enforcement. It's a training which I already have the certification, but you have to go again and test for that. And finally, expert level 5 is the military Krav Maga. So there's very, very few expert 5 in the world, because by the time you get there, you're usually a little bit too old to want to do the obstacle courses and the crazy stuff. But in 2018, I was also inducted into the expert instructor team. So what IKMF calls the global team. We are the elite Krav Maga instructors, and we go around the world to certify people to teach classes. In 2019, I had it was kind of a circle came full completion, because I went back to France and I did an instructor course for people who were from another federation and wanted to join IKMF. And one of these instructors was Jean-Marie, my very, very first Krav Maga instructor. He was 63-year-old now, and I certified him as a IKMF instructor. So that was kind of very interesting that he was the one who introduced me to Krav Maga, and I went back to him to certify him.
Oh, that's so cool. So can you explain a little bit on the differences? Because you said that certifying for teaching children and women is different. Like, what are the differences? Like, what are the subtle differences?
Well, first of all, in martial arts, for example, I'm talking about karate because that's what I know the most. As soon as you become a black belt, you become a sensei, and you can start teaching. In Krav Maga, in IKMF Krav Maga, it's not like that at all. If you can be the highest level you want, but you cannot be an instructor until you learn how to be an instructor. Which so the pedagogy, it's central to what we do. And children is a completely different animal. I mean, you have to know how to teach children, because they don't learn the same. They don't have the same motor skills. You have to adapt to be less brutal. Also, everything that we do, adapt to the situations that children face, like bullying in school, possibility of kidnapping, and all these things. For teaching women, before I became a Krav Maga full-time instructor, for 16 years of my life, I was a psychotherapist, and I specialized in domestic violence. I work with First Nation people, mostly First Nation women, and men were also criminals, perpetrators. I did some counseling with murderers in jail, like going to see them there. So it gave me that a huge insight into the reality and the psychology of violence, which I incorporated into my course. So when I do the women self-defense course that we have at Krav Maga Ottawa, relies a lot on this psychological aspect. And you have to deal, when we teach women, a lot of my students are women who have been traumatized by past experiences with violence, domestic violence, sexual assault, and so on. So if you want to ethically teach women the proper way, you have to know about trauma, and you have to know how to teach people with trauma, how to make sure that they feel respected, and that you understand that they have limitations, but you have to empower them. Like, it's empowerment is a huge thing. Basically, Krav Maga is therapy. I have seen, and I done psychotherapy with women for many years, and one of the reasons I quit the profession is because I couldn't see a lot of progress. There was not like just doing therapy it will help, but the patterns didn't change. The woman will always often go back to abusive relationships, and it was very frustrating. And with Krav Maga, I noticed huge progress in the same category of people. Women, not just women, but people come to us sometimes like broken because of the violence we were victim of. And Krav Maga give them back their identity and their sense of personal security, and it empowers them. They know that if they find themselves in these kind of situations in the future, they'll be able to handle it completely differently. So that's all of these elements are important. Like Krav Maga is the base of everything, but you have to adapt it. Law enforcement, I taught a lot of, I taught the RCMP here. I taught a lot of different law enforcement branches, armed bodyguards, and so on, and armed security guards. They don't have the same needs. The civilians, all you have to do if you're in a situation of violence is to solve the problem and run. This is the idea, not to stay. You have to apply enough force so that you can do enough damage to the person trying to hurt you so that they don't try to hurt you anymore. And that's it. Law enforcement is frowned upon. If you're a police officer and you beat some suspect up and you run away, it's not the same. So then you have to know how to control, how to use minimum force, how to handcuffs, how to use your gun. Like how to use your gun not just to shoot but as a blunt weapon. There's a lot of different things.
So going back to, so I found that interesting with the how Krav Maga can be therapy for, especially for the people that have gone through domestic violence. Why do you think that is? Like, why is it have a better, like, why mixed with the therapy or knowing how to teach using psychological principles? Why do you think it works better than just therapy on its own?
Well, it works because it's a form of cognitive behavioral therapy. Basically, what Krav Maga does is that, trauma is like, for lack of a better analogy, when you're traumatized, it's like a wound that's not healing. That's on your on your psyche, on your soul. Like it's one or several events that happen to you, and for some reason you get stuck into this event. You get stuck into this moment. So what Krav Maga does is that it allows people to revisit these feelings of powerlessness and these violent situations, but with a different outcome. No, we show them, listen, like this is the situation, and some people at first they cry and they break down and they have a hard time because they have flashbacks from what happened to them. But with time and the proper, understanding and patience and telling them, listen, it's okay. We never force people to go beyond, what they consider acceptable to them. But with time, they start to realize that there are other outcomes, possible outcomes to this situation. And they learn that they can do things, they learn that they can actually do damage to someone else. And they learn a lot of times, with a lot of the women, for example, I worked with who were in violent relationships, it comes from childhood. It comes from a long past of being abused and hearing the same messages all the time, that you are powerless and some other people are stronger than you and it's normal for you to be a victim. These are messages that are internalized, and these people live and carry these messages. Krav Maga changes these messages. It records on top of these messages, and it tells them, no one has the right to hurt you. No one has the right to touch you if you don't want to. And if someone does that, you have to give yourself full permission to hurt them and to hurt them bad. And when they start understanding that, there's usually a switch that happens, and they start to think differently and to look differently and to behave differently. And they report that they feel better and they can carry on with their lives a lot better. And that's just one aspect. I mean, Krav Maga, it's my therapy. It's a lot of people's therapy. You feel you feel bad, you feel depressed, you feel anxious. You go to an intense class, and you always feel better at the end. You strike and you hit, and you're in different kind of situations, and you have stress and you have to deal with the stress. And I don't know anybody who says, well, who doesn't feel better after a class than they do before a class.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's kind of one of those things that we all kind of knew subconsciously, but it'd be interesting if someone actually did that as a thesis or a paper, and
Absolutely.
and research. I think it would be tremendous help to people, especially the people suffering from trauma. Well, that's kind of neat. So where, because so what is your future plans now? Assuming we come out of COVID, are you planning on finishing up the different levels and going all the way to military, or what are your general plans?
Well, for myself, I mean, it's hard to make plans these days.
Yeah.
I'm trying to kind of take things as they are. I'm focusing a lot on my school. Uh, Again, like my school closed for 6 months, and I thought that when I reopened in September 2020, I thought no one will come because I thought that the fear of COVID will be too strong now, and it was the complete opposite. The school grew twice its size during the pandemic. And I don't see why it will stop. People need a sense of normal right now, and training is a sense of normal for them. So for myself, you can never stop learning. I think you have to. The day you stop learning, you start losing. And so you start going in the wrong direction. So, assuming that the pandemic is over, I am planning on going back to Israel probably at some point in the next few years to complete Expert 4, maybe. Maybe yes, maybe not. It's we'll see where it goes. But my priority right now is definitely on the school, on my team. I have a fantastic team of instructors that I train, that are working with me very close, and I want to continue developing their level and their teaching abilities. Basically, one of the things that I learned in the past few years is to put the emphasis on quality over quantity. It's anybody, if you have a good enough marketing technique, it's easy to get 200 or 300 students. And we're actively choosing to have maybe 150 students instead, but have them focus on quality. Right now in September, I had 50 students who joined the beginners program. And yesterday we finished our session with the test, the practitioner test, and 15 of these beginners tested for P1. It was very high level, but it's 15 out of 50. And they are the ones who will stay and continue making the school even stronger. So that's my plan. I want to keep, when the pandemic is over, of course, I want to, as a member of the IKMF global team, I want to keep traveling to other places and training more instructors and testing more students, doing seminars all over the place. But it's kind of hard right now to think about traveling and things like that. Well, Krav Maga is a lot of it's a lot more than a self-defense system. It's a philosophy, and it's a way of life that I applied to my own life. And part of this philosophy is to constantly adapt to changes in order to survive. And that's what we've done, and that's why I intend to keep doing. I know now things that I didn't know before the pandemic. I know that our school will survive no matter what. I have no doubt about it anymore in my mind. We are big, we are good, the community needs us, and I don't care if we close 1 month or if we have to close a year. We'll be back and we'll keep doing what we do. I'm not worried about it.
Awesome. So I've been seeing like a lot of things on the internet about how Krav Maga is kind of losing its luster, right? Because there's a lot of people that are, for lack of a better term, not legitimate or watering it down. What are your thoughts on people saying that Krav Maga is not as effective as it once was?
Okay, so I'd like to, since you're asking this question, I'd like to take this opportunity to address a few of the myths, what I call the myth of Krav Maga. First myth, for example, that I'd like to address, and it's a bad one. It's one that is hurting, I think, what Krav Maga really is and is meant to do, is what I call the myth of the Israeli tough guy. And I'm not going to say any names. Don't even ask me or name any federations, because I don't want to say anything bad about anyone. I don't. That's not the way I do. But I do see more and more, a lot of the instructors most of them, a lot of them are Israeli, and they come out and they're, usually they're wearing the camo clothes and military clothes, and they have the tough talk, like, I'm the real thing. And most of them, they, of course, all of them have taught the super special units, and their commandos, and so on and so on. And they put that message out. I see videos of these guys, and very often they will show a kind of what I call a typical Krav Maga technique against a knife, or against a choke or whatever. And they don't understand the technique. They do it very poorly, but they demonstrate and they say, this doesn't work. This is what Krav Maga doesn't work. And then they talk for about 10 minutes about how it's not realistic enough and this and that. And then they show you their own techniques that they came up with, which very often is complete BS and would never work in a real fight. Okay. So that's the myth, is that the best Krav Maga instructors are from the Israeli military. And these guys are the top of the top because we were in the military. This is absolutely not true. Basically, in the Israeli military, and I know a lot of people who were in the Israeli military, you don't learn Krav Maga. You have to be clear. You learn a very, very, very simplified version of Krav Maga. You learn how to be aggressive. You learn how to use a rifle as a blunt weapon. But I've had former IDF, including people who were in so-called special units, came to my school, and they didn't know how to make a punch or throw a kick. They have to learn from the beginning. So why? Think about it. I mean, the soldier doesn't do hand-to-hand fighting. This is a big disfavor that Hollywood has done to Krav Maga, is to think that in the Hollywood movies, all of the military assault guys are absolutely killing machines. They learn to use their hands as a weapon. It's not the case. In the army, you learn to use a gun. You learn to use tactics. You learn to work with a team. You learn to use all kind of different logistic things. It's very, very, very rare that a soldier will end up in hand-to-hand fighting with the enemy. That's maybe 200 years ago, but it's not the case now. So, the people, if you want to talk about professional Krav Maga, the people, in my opinion, who need Krav Maga and use it more than anyone else in any profession are the corrections officers. I mean, these guys are in prison with gang members with no weapon. And these guys have, knives and sheaves, and they have to deal with real violence all the time. So if you want to, look at tough guys, show me the correctional officers, career correctional officer. That's a real tough guy who knows a thing or two about hand-to-hand combat. So again, like these guys always, one of the things that these guys say is, they will show you, they will look at a video, for example, of students in training knife defense, any kind of gun defense, and they're saying, look, it's not realistic. They're doing it too slow. That's not the way people attack, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but you have to understand there is a learning process in Krav Maga which has proven to be effective. So when the people come for the first lesson, if you slap them in the face and say this is a real slap, and and you start punching them and throwing them to the ground and say this is Krav Maga, do you think this is good idea? Do you think these people will actually learn anything? No. When you learn anything, you learn slowly. First, you have to learn to do something slow, very slow, to understand the mechanics, and then you learn to do it. There's 3 stages in Krav Maga learning, and it's very similar to driving a car. Okay, the first stage is when Krav Maga is in your head. It's like you learn the techniques. It's not very natural to you. You have to think about it. Imagine, if you can, the first time you got into a car and with an instructor and learn to drive, everything is awkward. You don't go 200 kilometers an hour right away, and you learn slowly. Second stage is, we call it, when Krav Maga, basically it's in your body. So imagine you've been driving for 6 months and now you're good. You don't have to, every time you do a maneuver, it's correct. You can handle all kind of situations better, but you still have to consciously think about it. And the last stage, and that's something you don't see until the high G levels in Krav Maga, is when Krav Maga is in your blood, when you're going to react without thinking, and you're going to do things fast and hard without thinking. So yes, it's easy to say it's not realistic, but the truth is, you have to teach people how to handle a punch or a kick or a choke or a stab very slowly. You have to do it basically like, of course, it's not going to be realistic at first. And then as the student progresses, he is going to go faster. The attacks are going to be more realistic. And very soon, very fast in your Krav Maga life, you're going to start, if you're a good instructor, you're going to put your students into situations where, like in my G level test, for example, I give the prop knife to the students and I say, you go, you do whatever you want, as hard, as fast as you want. You go and stab that person. And then you let people defend themselves. I heard a story recently, again, without saying names, but one of these Israeli tough guys saying, yeah, like I attacked an expert with a knife and he couldn't defend himself because I went too fast. Okay, fair enough. So does that mean that this expert was not good at Krav Maga and he didn't understand and not able to react? Absolutely not. If you have told him before, I'm going to attack you as hard as and fast as I can, and of course, I give you permission to also defend as hard and fast as you can, maybe the situation would have been different. If that person came to me and said, okay, I'm going to, if they want to prove that Krav Maga is not effective by attacking me with a knife and they're going very fast to show it doesn't work, within half a second, I'm going to break their face. And I say, okay, that's what you asked for. Because if one is attacking full blast and the other is defending, but trying not to hurt the person who is in front of them, because they're not an enemy, they're a student, there's a disadvantage there, you understand. Anybody can defeat Krav Maga if you put it in the wrong context. You know what I mean? So that's, to me, that's a myth. Now, is Krav Maga, are there a lot of instructors out there who are teaching in a way that is not effective? Absolutely. And that's across federation. It has nothing to do with the style. It has to do with the instructor and with their own background and their experience. But I can tell you that in the pedagogy, for example, with the IKMF, basically the idea is to increase the level of stress. We deal with stress a lot. We put our students under like tremendous stress so that they can still operate. And starting in the P4 level, for example, which is about 2 years of Krav Maga or something, the test involve full contact fight. Basically, we take some precautions, but students mentally, they have to be able to take a punch and a kick and to keep going. And how do we know it works? And we don't have to, basically, it's been used in real life countless times, both by civilians and professionals. My students have had to use what I taught them quite a few times over the years, and usually with pretty good outcomes. So that's how we trust that it works. And I will end on this subject, maybe just in saying that if someone approach of Krav Maga or any kind of martial arts or any kind of system, is to first show what others people do and to tell you and to basically crap on it and to say this is really bad and this is the solution is what I do and only I have the solution. Run, stay away from these people. For me, I don't like to say bad things about any systems. All systems have their advantages and pros and cons. And in the end of the day, in every system, you will have instructors who don't know what they're doing, and you will have very good people who know how to teach. And that's what it is. And just to qualify, I mean, when I was saying, not necessarily the big commando Israeli guys are the best instructors. That's definitely a myth. That being said, some of the best instructors I had myself were Israeli and had been involved in had been in the military, had been in special forces, but they don't talk about it all the time. They're humble, like they don't dress as military people. They don't talk about their things. Why are they so good at Krav Maga? It's because since they were children, they learned from Imi Lichtenfeld, the founder of Krav Maga. IKMF, the source of Krav Maga is with Imi. And, since they were 13, 14 years old, they've been learning the best Krav Maga. That's why they're good. Not because they didn't learn what they learned in the army while they were in the special force or whatever. They learn it being part of a very good Krav Maga federation. So.
Yeah. And I think that's what it comes down to, is making sure that, any instructor that you choose to go with is affiliated with a reputable organization, and that way you can kind of ensure that you're going to get good Krav Maga training, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, like to me, it has to go back. In the end of the day, it goes back to the source. There are some federations whose source is IMI,
Mhm,
like, and well, I'm sure you know the history of a little bit of Krav Maga. Like, at some point, we had a bunch of very, very good high-level people
mhm,
who were all working together. So you had Eyal Yanilov, who was basically the direct student of IMI and is the one who's developed the curriculum of Krav Maga as we know it today, even though it changed a lot. Like he's the one who codified Krav Maga, the rank levels, and so on and so on. And then behind him, you had people like Avi Moyal. Avi Moyal is now the chair of the International Krav Maga Federation, and he was my instructor for many years. And like Avi, for example, in my opinion, is like one of the best instructors I've ever met. Not because he's a tough guy. You look at him, you will never think he's a Krav Maga expert, master level two, but because of his pedagogy, because of the way that he
mhm,
explained everything. Like taking a course with him is like it's not about him, it's about you as a student. And you call, yeah, it's in great part it's because of his instructions that I reached the level I reached today. um, and when Eyal left, 10 years ago, and he founded Krav Maga Global. So this is also very close to the original Krav Maga. And over, master level people like Gabi Nor and Eli Ben Ami, these people eventually, Amnon Darsa, I did my first expert level with Amnon and my first instructor course with Amnon Darsa. Fantastic
mhm,
instructor back then,
mhm,
like all these people were all in the same federation. Everything was IKMF, including Philippe Cadouche and so on. And then everyone were their own way. But what they're teaching is real Krav Maga. They all come from the source. I respect them. I respect all of these people and everything they do. And then again you have organizations that call themselves Krav Maga, but there is no link at all with IMI, with the original Krav Maga. It's just some people who might be Israeli judo instructor and decide to call their system Krav Maga. So
mhm.
that's where it's at. And with these people so far, I haven't seen a lot of good stuff. That's that's all I can tell you. So, yeah.
So how do we ensure that Krav Maga is going to continue to develop in the right direction in the future? Then,
Who is we?
right? Yeah, that's exactly it, right?
We
Like,
can't. People are gonna keep doing what they're doing, unfortunately. Like for me, I have no ambition to completely revolutionize Krav Maga. I focus on my school, on my students. That's how I
mhm,
change things. I'm taking care of the next generation of instructors, and in turns they will. As I believe that our school, Krav Maga Ottawa, and I'm not saying that to brag, but I believe it is one of the best schools in the world. And I say that because I went to many schools, both as a global team member and participating and traveling and seeing what's done all over the place. At Krav Maga Ottawa, we how I know that our instruction is good is looking at our students. If you want to know if someone is very good, you don't look at what they can do. I know a lot of people, including the Israeli tough guys, as I said, who can do a lot of good things, beautiful kicks, and they're good fighters and so on. You don't look at them. You look at their students. If
mhm.
their students are also very good, then you know that they can transfer the knowledge and they're good instructors. So for me, my students are very high level. A lot of them become instructors and very high level instructors. So I know I'm doing something right by looking at how people progress. It's not about me. It's about my students and the people I teach. I think the more instructors have that philosophy of really being passionate about creating teaching quality, and not making compromise, having full integrity in what they're teaching. That's how we make Krav Maga better, you know. And of course, it's I agree, like maybe Krav Maga 20 years later was a bit different. uh, there was a lot more injuries in the test. It was a lot more, a lot of full contact. Like there used to be expert camps, and there would be 2 new experts every year. Now there's a lot more. It become a little bit, but it grew. I mean, it's like everything else. It used to be something that was very small, and now it's huge, and we have to accommodate all that. And some people say, oh, it's because of the money. The money has changed everything, and because of the money, Krav Maga has been watered down. Again, this is BS, in my opinion. I mean, so if you don't do it, if you do it for the money, you will never be successful. That's the idea. But if you do it for your passion, and if you're good at it, and if you know what you're doing, you will make money. This is the paradox of Krav Maga. And making money is not a bad thing. I'm a full-time instructor. I have a successful business. If I was doing that just as a side job, I will never be able to spend so much time doing it, and to spend so much of my life developing Krav Maga. So just because something is a business doesn't mean it has to be watered down. At the end of the day, it has to do with your own philosophy. And the philosophy in my school is simple. It's like, eventually you have to learn to defend against the most realistic attacks, the way that people actually behave in the street. If not, you're just dancing. You're not doing anything interesting. So yes, people learn slowly, they get in shape slowly, but we have that point. And usually for us, it's around the P4 level, as I said, where people have to be able to fight, and they have to be able to deal with any kind of situation in a very aggressive way, and to deal with people who are aggressive as well. We have injuries sometimes also. You can't do, if you have a Krav Maga school and you never have injuries, maybe you should reconsider your training methods. But we don't have a lot of injuries. We take safety measures, but at the end of the day, you want to make an omelette, you're going to break some eggs. Like you have to, people are aware of that. Like bruises and bloody nose and broken ribs are part of Krav Maga. This is part of the game, and it when it's just like MMA or anything else. Injuries are part of the game. But if you want to teach Krav Maga with integrity, you have to put your students through situations where they're going to be stressed, where they're going to be hit, and where they have to defend themselves. And then they'll become fighters. There's no secret. That's how it works.
I fully agree, sir. That was very insightful. So if someone wanted to get in contact with you, and do you do seminars for outside of Ottawa, or
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. As I said, I'm part of the IKMF Global Instructor team. So people can request for me to go and do training, to go and seminars anytime. Of course, there is COVID.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we both assume that we're talking about on the other side of all that. But yes, I mean, I love doing this. I've been doing that for many years, like coming and meeting new people and showing them a different way. Like this is beautiful to me to see when people have maybe learned something softer or something different, and then when I teach them and I see in their eyes the sparkle, the understanding is like, wow, I want to do this. This is the reward for me. I love doing that. This is the transfer of knowledge, and whatever we do in our school, I love to share it with other people. So
perfect. And if
hopefully
they wanted
soon.
Hopefully, if they wanted to get in contact with you, what is the best way?
Well, my website to keep track of all the events we have in Ottawa and everything we do. So it's kravmagaottawa.com. Or they can just send me an email at kravottawa@gmail.com. I'm very easy to find. If you Google me, there's hundreds of pages of stuff we've done and videos of our seminars. We have a very strong internet presence.
Perfect. All right, sir. Well, it was great talking to you. And next time I'm in Ottawa, hope you don't mind if I drop in on you.
Absolutely. You have a standing invitation to our school. Absolutely.
Perfect. I will definitely take you up on that one day. So I want to thank you for being on Krav Life.
Thank you.
And you have yourself a great day, sir.
You too. And happy holidays.
Yes, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.